Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint.
Welcome back to the Brand Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Dana Ammons, and today we have an incredible episode lined up. Today, I have somebody that I am really excited to introduce to you, and he is somebody that I met recently through my relationship with the CIC. I'm thrilled to introduce Jeremy Chow. He is the brilliant founder of Tactus Technologies, a company dedicated to making music accessible to the deaf community through cutting-edge wearable technology. And that's right, folks. I said wearable technology. This is going to be a really cool conversation. Jeremy is a really brilliant founder who I'm excited to talk to today. And Jeremy's journey is a fascinating blend of engineering, ingenuity, and community-driven passion. From working on groundbreaking technology to forming partnerships with organizations like AFFOA and local schools, Jeremy and his team are transitioning and transforming the way the deaf community interacts with music. So today we're diving into his journey as an entrepreneur, the development of Tactus, and how his team is reshaping accessibility and inclusion. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dana. Thank you for having me on the episode. Appreciate the wonderful introduction. I'm really excited to dive into the details and chat more with you about this.
Hey, well, look, I am super excited to chat with you as well. I know you are getting ready to embark on a very interesting journey, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the interview. But before we jump in, we have a section called our Rapid Fire segment that we use to let our audience get to know you a little bit better. So I'd love to get ready to jump into that. And remember, all you got to do is just say the first thing that comes to mind. This is not meant to be a long dissertation, but just a quick opportunity for people to get to know you better. So are you ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
All right, great. Let's jump in now. Jeremy, I know given the amount of work that you do in the technology space that you probably have some favorite apps and favorite devices that are kind of can't live without items. So if you had one piece of technology that you couldn't live without, what would that piece of technology be?
So that would be definitely my earbuds, something that I can plug into my phone. And yes, I said plug into my phone, not something wireless. I don't know what it is. I'm a bit old school. I like having the wire. I have used, obviously Bluetooth headphones and wireless earbuds, but something about, having the wire and then, plug yourself in, it just hits a bit different.
That's really interesting. So, I mean, let's kind of take that one step further and stay kind of in the realm of your product and your passion. Tell me who your favorite go-to song or artist is. And secondly, if you think that music would be experienced differently through Tactus.
That is a very, very good question. Spotify tells me I'm a Spotify user, so I'll say that's another piece of tech that has really transformed my life as well, making it so easy to access music. Spotify tells me that last year, the Dire Straits were my number one artist. So I think that'll be a big, they do a lot of blues. I think they do some real groovy music. So I think that it will really fit well with the tech that we've developed. But all today, I've been listening to an artist called Jeremy Albino, an artist from Toronto. I actually saw him live yesterday here in Boston. So just want to give him a shout out, put on a great show. Again, a bit bluesy, rock music. And really
Jeremy Albino, right?
That's correct.
All right, shouts out to Jeremy. I'll definitely be putting that on my playlist. I appreciate that recommendation of Jeremy recommending a Jeremy for a Dana. So check that out, audience. Make sure you try that out. I am always a big fan of new music, new artists, so I appreciate the recommendation. So keeping the questions going, what's the best advice you've received so far? And I usually say ever, and I'm interviewing typically, right, a founder that's closer to my age range. But for a young guy like you starting this path, on this path right now, what's the best advice you've received so far as an entrepreneur?
That is a tough question because I've received so many great advice from all kinds of folks. I've been really fortunate to get to work with folks like you, people who are really experienced in entrepreneurship, in the business world, in technology, to be able to give some advice. But I think one thing that have really hit me personally is do not let perfection get in the way of progress. My background's in mechanical engineering, so I think it's an engineer's thing. We need everything to be perfect, math triple checked before we hand in anything to the outside world, to a professor or whatever it is, right? But one advice that I've gotten is, hey, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. You can always make it better. It can always be better. But sometimes if it's good enough, then it's time to go.
It's time to go, right? Like you can't perfect it either, especially when you are potentially on a timeline and on a budget. I love that advice. Definitely something that I think more founders should listen to. And I think it's a good observation that sometimes you can come from an orientation of math or science where everything's black and white, right? Like my brother, best friend, is a mathematician by nature. And when we were kids, right, we always would have these arguments because I'm very much a creative, more so on the gray area. I deal well with a lot of ambiguity. He doesn't do well in that space at all. He needs very defined and, finite, understanding the answers because that's how his world has always worked. So I think it's good advice when you're going into entrepreneurship and you're starting something. There just isn't such thing as perfection. So, great piece of advice. One other question, as I always ask most of my founders, and I'm really curious when I ask a founder of your age and stage, because I think, things and times have changed with respect to this. But first question is, are you a coffee or a tea person?
I am a coffee person. I've got mine right here. So, almost 2:30, got my second one today, so it's not going crazy today about it, but definitely a coffee person.
Okay, definitely a coffee person. Now, another special question in this coffee or tea edition, because you are in Boston, a city that I once lived in as well, and a city that I know specifically has a bit of a claim in this coffee game, especially when it comes to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. And I learned the hard way when I relocated to Boston way back in the day that it is not a Starbucks town. So tell me, are you a Dunkin' Donuts person or a Starbucks person? And then once you tell me that, what's your go-to drink at that establishment?
Honestly, if I had to pick between the two, I think Dunkin's is the loser in my opinion. I wouldn't call Starbucks the winner as well. If I had to choose between the two, it would be Starbucks. I don't know. Dunkin' Donuts, the coffee just does not hit the same for me.
I thought the same thing, right? Yeah. I love the dots. I love Dunkin' Dots, but that was the only thing I would pull up on them for.
Yeah, exactly. But the great thing about Boston is I think there are so many local, cafes, and those are the spots I really enjoy. So,
I love that. Now, knowing that you grew up and have family still in the Hong Kong market, what would be the equivalent of the go-to morning beverage at home?
So this is not, I wouldn't say it's the absolute go-to for everybody, but I think this really captures the Hong Kong culture perfectly. And it's personally my favorite drink. So it's my go-to. I wouldn't say it's everybody's go-to, but it's my
I love that. This is what we want to know, your go-to.
Perfect. I'm going to say it in Cantonese, the name of this drink. It's called Yin Yang. What it stands for, it's kind of like yin yang, right? You got the black and white, and yin yang specifically means or it refers to the white and the black swan. So very similar to the yin yang kind of logo, black and white. And what it is black being coffee, white being milk tea. So, it's black tea with milk and sugar, coffee. So it's 50-50. And I think that perfectly captures Hong Kong. Exactly, because you've got the Chinese kind of side with the tea, and you've got the Western influence of coffee, and it's 50-50. And I think it tastes amazing. You get the initial kick of the coffee, but the aftertaste and smoothness of the tea, that's my go-to drink.
Wow, I love that. Okay, great answer to actually end the rapid fire segment on. So thank you for being so transparent and sharing those couple of tidbits about yourself. Now I'm ready to jump into the main interview. Are you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, great. Okay, audience, look, I have raved early on about Jeremy and what he is creating. And I want to start with your story first. Before we jump into Tactus, let's talk a little bit about you. Can you share a bit about what inspired your journey to go from engineering into creating Tactus Technologies?
Yeah, definitely. And I can, to really fully answer that question, I think I'll even go even way back before the time of engineering. And that was, when I was in middle school, that's when I started learning the guitar, actually. And very quickly fell in love with it. I would come back from school, I'd play every day. And the best thing about it is that I got to learn the instrument with one of my, my best friend, at the time, still is really, we've stayed best friends throughout the years, even though we live in different parts of the world now. And we played in a band together. We would play music together, and I think at the time I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be a rock star, basically. Right? So I want to.
And let me ask you this, Jeremy, interrupting, but this is a fascinating story because I know your background being engineering. You clearly were good with math, numbers, etc. So tell me about first, it sounds like you got introduced to the guitar at school, which is pretty intriguing and interesting to me. And you were in school in the Boston area at this time. Is that correct?
No. So at the time, I was actually going to middle school in Beijing in China.
Whoa. Okay. So even more intriguing. Okay. So you're going to middle school in Beijing, China. You are clearly academically getting plenty of workload. And then also on top of this, they introduced this musical instrument play. So did you go in to the guitar experience? Like I went in, in America, we do the classic recorder. You got to learn the clarinet, something corny like that. And I remember as a kid thinking I got to clear around this little flute for the next 6 weeks, at school. I'm not going to be cool at all. No girls are talking to me. I don't want to do this at all, right? But you guys get a guitar. Now, I think if I'd have got a guitar at that age, I too would have been well, wait a minute. Now this is actually a little cooler. So tell me about your transition from where you were to music, period.
Yeah, that's right. So we had the classic music classes. I also learned recorder at the time, which I was like, yeah, this is not really my thing. But then, I was very excited when we got to the guitar lessons. And I think I might have spotted a guitar even before that. And I was like, I want to pick that up. So I think I even started, going out on my own, taking lessons before we got into the guitar section of the curriculum. So that was great. And yeah, that was a big part of those middle school years. I played a lot of music. I would play with my friend, which was awesome. Like I said, we got to learn together and progress together. We'd play music together. And yeah, like I said, I just had this passion for playing music at the time.
Yeah, and you thought you were going to be in a band. Now it sounds like your friend is completely across the world somewhere else. Where is he now?
He's in Australia now. He's in Sydney, Australia.
Whoa. So okay, he's in Sydney, Australia. Is he in the music industry at all, or is he doing something completely different as well?
He is now doing something completely different. At some point, he was doing something related to music, but now doing something completely different. So yeah, at the time, with schoolwork as well, there's a lot of other things going on, and I think after a couple of years of practicing, playing music, enjoying myself, learning songs, I kind of realized I was like, maybe I'm not that musically talented to be a rock star, to make a career out of it. Yeah. And that's right around the time when I started to realize that I was really enjoying engineering as well. I was really enjoying learning the sciences. I was very much enjoying learning about how things work. Physics was really intriguing to me. So I was like, okay, this is something that's very interesting to me as well, and something that I want to continue to pursue. But at the time, I was like, I don't want to give up this music thing. So I want to, I want to try and do something that has a bit of an overlap between the two. And actually, that's where I found to be, most fascinating to me, actually, the science of music, because I think music is such a abstract thing, it's an art, whereas science is all about, numbers and really being breaking things down, really understanding how things work. So where those two worlds collide, I thought it was very, very interesting. This very abstract world and this other world that's, all about kind of order and rules and theorems and things like that, where these two worlds collide. And that's where I started learning about, the science behind music. Why does one chord, a combination of notes sound like this, and how does that connect us to how we perceive that chord or that note? Is it a happy chord? What consists of how does a happy chord make us happy or sad?
Right.
How does a sad chord make us sad? Like, why is that? So I all found that to be very, very interesting. I found how you can create tension with flows of music. Create tension with a different chord progression. Make the listener feel uncomfortable on a certain point, but then resolve it nicely at the end of the chord progression. So all of that was very fascinating to me. And I started diving into the world where, these two, the science and engineering and music collide. And then that's now at this point I'm at university. I'm at Northeastern University, and that is when I met Professor Laurie Akin, who is a deaf professor, and also a dancer and a choreographer. So I thought, wow, that's very, very interesting, very impressive. I got to learn about her process. I got to speak with her about it, where she would tell me how she would learn music through a different medium, through vibrations, through maybe watching music videos, reading the lyrics, and actually she would learn the songs in that way, have it memorized, so that when she's out dancing, she has the song playing in her head in perfect rhythm ready.
Unless I want to make sure our audience catches this, Jeremy, because you told the story in a very fluid way, and they may have missed one key part that I really want to make sure the audience understands, because Jeremy was basically explaining his journey to this entrepreneurial endeavor that is Tactus, and how music connected him in this really, really unique way. And I want to talk about this because there are social impact brands that are born out of these really pivotal, unique experiences that the founders go through. And yours is one of the best stories I've ever heard with regard to making this kind of like impact on, wow, I think I can make a difference here. So audience, his first interactions was with, and she's a professor at the school, right, at Northeastern, who
That's
is
correct.
deaf and a dancer. And Jeremy, talk to the crowd again about how she actually learned to dance, but basically can't hear the music.
Yeah. So she told me that she would learn music through vibrations was one medium, through other mediums, right? So watching music videos to really get the feeling and the vibe of the song, reading the lyrics to really understand what the song is about, putting her hands on speakers was a big thing, feeling the vibrations from the music.
Amazing.
To really get an understanding of the dynamic, how the song's really flowing, follow the music in that way, learn the song, essentially memorize the song in that way. So when she's dancing, it's just playing in her head and she's dancing to it.
And she somehow memorized it even from a timing standpoint, where from the naked eye, you could almost assume that she can hear the music she's dancing to, right?
That's right.
Just mind-boggling. So walk us through there. This is literally that pivotal moment. So you're seeing this, you're fascinated like I am by the fact that she can even do this. And then you do what?
Yeah, that's right. I think the first thing was, we connected over our shared passion for music. I was extremely impressed about it. I asked her all kinds of questions, and she was very kind to share her experiences with me. And so I actually proposed that this project that we would build around her and with her, as my senior design capstone project at Northeastern University in the mechanical engineering program. And the whole idea was, hey, she went through all these challenges and she's still pursuing her arts, which is, again, amazing. But there has to be an easier way there. We can make it maybe a bit easier for her.
And was that supposed to be the objective for your senior project, was to find something that you could essentially apply mechanical engineering to produce a solution?
That's correct. That is correct. So I think the main goal is to be able to allow Professor Lori Aachen, to be able to dance while having some type of live music feedback. Right? So that could be through any kind of medium, but we chose to use vibrations, and we chose to have the vibration on her body, and that's the result. So throughout this whole process, we would meet with her regularly. We would have conversations about these different ideas that we had. We would present small little prototypes that she would try on, and kind of even brainstorm with us, which was awesome. And in the end, we ended up with a wearable device that she can wear while she's dancing, and it should not obstruct with her dance moves. So she can feel the music live on her body while she's dancing.
I love this. And for our audience, I will be, and hopefully as you are listening to my voice, you are actually seeing the video from Jeremy that we've actually added in post-edit, because there is an incredible video of this moment and of this actual transformative experience of her trying on the Tactus prototype and for the first time feeling music in real time. And so we're definitely going to make sure that the audience can see this as either part of the show, and make sure also, as with all of our great guests, we put Jeremy's information on the brandblueprint.biz with his profile and links to all of the important social media and website platforms that you can find them. So now I'm fascinated. I've seen the video. Obviously, I'm sharing it with the audiences in real time. But let's go on and take it now to the next step. You've got proof of concept, right? Like you now see, wow, okay, this can really work. Take us through, without obviously giving away trade secrets, et cetera, because we want to make sure we protect you as a new startup business. But I also want to make sure I get as many people out here who are listening that could be a supporter of yours or even a potential future customer to really understand what went behind the efforts and what is going behind the efforts to bring this technology to the market. So talk a little bit about the product development process, because it is something that we are trying to demystify for our audience, especially because you're starting from a place of really, ground zero. You didn't have a big company behind you. You didn't have this expensive, lab and equipment and access to all sorts of research and technology like bigger companies. So how did you go about the research and product development project, and did your engineering background inform that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the very first thing we did when we were approached with this problem was look at what's currently out there. So we did our research. I think there were about 2 months as part of the capstone process where we purely just did research. We did not touch did not go into a lab, did not touch anything, did not put any prototype together, even though we were very eager to get started already. We said, okay, no, let's really look at what's out there. Let's, read existing research papers about how the brain works, how hearing loss would affect somebody's brain. We learned a lot about how plastic the brain is, right? So kind of like Daredevil, right? So you lose a, but then your brain kind of rewires itself a little bit to really enhance your other cells, right? So we learned a lot about that. We learned about how vibration was one of the key things that a person with hearing loss would really respond to. And we learned a lot about signal processing, about how really breaking down and what is music, what is it? What are the frequencies and amplitudes? What can we really regularly see? And how can we translate that into vibration that a person can feel on their body? So I think that was a big key innovation that we did, and really understanding that initially really set us off to a great start to start that R&D effort to really dive into.
I love that. And then a couple of questions, Jeremy, are fascinating. I mean, kudos to you and your team for one, having the wisdom and having the restraint to say, let's not just jump right in and start creating something, right off the bat. Let's research and learn this process first. And I want to really bring this home for the crowd, because let's paint this picture. You're in college, like you're doing this. You got other stuff you're doing, bro. Like right, you ain't just sitting around with like tons of time on your hand and a trust fund and your parents sending you money. Like, Jeremy, man, just do this whenever you want to, right? So talk to the crowd about, number one, how in the world did you even get to the point of being inspired to say, let's focus first and get the research done? Two, how did you do the research? I mean, somebody might be listening and going, man, that kid went to Northeastern and they probably gave him a whole bunch of that stuff and he had a free lab or whatever. He didn't do anything. He just learned it in his classes. Like, talk to me about what this process was, because this wasn't part of your educational track.
Yeah. First of all, I'm not gonna lie. I owe a lot to Northeastern. I wouldn't say they handed me everything, but it gave me the resources to do a lot of things, right? I have access to a library. I have access to online research journals. Obviously, and that's the part where I'm taking advantage of these resources and going out and looking. You
still had to look it up. You still had to read it. Yep.
Yeah, I had to read it. I had to, do the research myself. We had access to a lab, but it had tools and stuff, which is great. But I had to figure out what I need to order, what I want to test. Actually putting it together, and I think having those resources are definitely very important. If you're absolutely starting from ground zero, I think having those resources and being able to leverage whatever you can in your environment, will help you tremendously. If you're in a university setting, there will be resources available for you. Obviously, like being in Boston Public Library, there's a ton of resources available there, right? If you're trying to do certain research, and obviously, you can find a lot of those things actually with a very relatively quick Google search. You kind of know what you're looking at, right? So, they helped a lot, I would say. But yeah, I was taking other classes, but I think what really the motivation and drive that I think we had as a team was mostly, at least for me, I can speak for myself, is just I just really enjoyed this project overall. Yeah. I had a lot of fun, learning about these things, onboarding new knowledge that my years of couple years of engineering classes really did not teach me, right? So they taught me other things, but I had to onboard a lot of new knowledge.
And you did that driven by your passion and for the project itself, right? Which I think is such an important insight. So many founders I see jump into something that they are told or informed by, whether it's their friends or their own knowledge or society, that this is an opportunity. Doesn't mean they're passionate about it, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. I was talking to another young guy a couple of weeks ago who was trying to figure out something to do. I've been, a guy who's been in this startup and entrepreneurial space for quite a while. So one of the things that I'm really good at is bouncing ideas off of people who want to get into an entrepreneurship endeavor. So he calls me up, says, "Hey, Mr. Ammons, I'm thinking about getting into entrepreneurship. I'm not really sure what I want to do. Here's kind of some of the things I'm interested in. What do you think I should do, or what are some suggestions?" And so one of the things I knew he was interested in was pets. And I said, "Hey, there's this really booming business for a young guy like you, a young person, period, female or male, that you could jump into. And that's the pooper scoop business. There's a lot of, individual entrepreneurs making money going out in the neighborhoods. Like when I grew up, it was cutting grass and shoveling walks. Now it's, scooping poop, which is, in my mind, way better than shoveling snow or cutting grass. And frankly, far easier to a degree." So I give him this, blueprint, pretty easy startup, low overhead. He could do it out of his current car. Everything makes sense, right? Except he wasn't interested in that business, right? And so regardless of how much money it could have made him, how easy it was for him to get into, how scalable it was, he wasn't interested. And because he wasn't interested, he likely wouldn't have been good at it. And so I think, to your point, you having the passion actually connected to your passion for music makes total sense to me, because I, like you, share this love of music. And I think, like you, having met this professor, I would have equally been questioning myself on, there's got to be an easier way, right? Because I can't imagine not being able to enjoy music, something that's so integral and important in my life. And I think it was the same that motivated you in this way. So now you've gone to this, through these steps of educating yourself. You guys have gotten the research and development done. Now I know you're pulling your sleeves up. Let's get ready to start creating. So talk to me about that, because obviously if you're not an engineer, you've never really done anything like that, it is a bit of a mystifying process. So let's help demystify it a little bit. Talk a little bit about, the practical kind of steps you took to first start down the path of developing this product.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So first of all, just to give some additional context, once we started, with our sleeves up, kind of diving into it, we had 4 months to complete everything, and that's like
Wow.
everything until the final presentation,
Mhm.
presenting it and everything. So it was a relatively, and of course, like I said, we were all taking other classes at this time, right? So it was a relatively crunch timeline. So I think one of the key things that really helped and kind of, we were in a way forced to do it is to get to a initial prototype quickly. Let's put something together. And again, don't let perfection get in the way of progress, right? So
Correct.
let's put something together
Get your
quickly.
MVP on the table, your minimum viable product, figure out what you have.
Exactly. I think at that point it wasn't even, I wouldn't even call it MVP, like a minimum viable product. It was like a minimum viable prototype. If it works, then like great.
So you were MP. You wasn't even viable. You was just minimum product. We got the minimal product right here.
Exactly. And you learn a lot from that. And I think one of the key things that we did was we met regularly with Professor Loriakin.
Nice.
And we would show her, something, and then, she would be able to try it out and then give some feedback. I think that's also very, very important when you're making a product to have the user in mind, right? So really making something that really works for her, that she feels good about, and then likely, other people like her may feel the same way. So we met almost like every other week or every other 2 weeks. We would learn a lot from those interactions, and then we would go back to the lab and iterate on that. And let's improve it. Let's see how we can incorporate her feedback. Oh, she didn't like this. Okay, let's move that somewhere else. Oh, well, she really enjoyed this part, and she thinks that this can be tighter or looser. So and then we would make those iterations. And so I think that was a very key part to making that project a success. So it's just really being involved with her, developing it with her.
I love that, Jeremy. Partnerships seem to be a really important part of your success. And I love the fact that you were intentional about involving her early in the product development process, and you continue to work with her and bring her with you through the process. And I think some founders probably hear that, and I know from experience, feel a little bit nervous about bringing people in early, sharing the idea, especially at the level of true, engagement with the prototype. Talk a little bit about that, because I'm sure you guys had some similar concerns, and you are not just partnering with this one professor. Talk a little bit about how you are actually involving local organizations. You're working with groups that will help you continue to get user experience on an ongoing basis as you develop this product and get to final launch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think have those similar, maybe fears or concerns when going out and talking to our users. I think I didn't have that much when I was working with Professor Loriakin, just because she was so jazzed about it. She has such a wonderful personality. It was so easy to work with her. But then, afterwards, when we started engaging with other people within the deaf community, it's a bit daunting, I'm not gonna lie, and they don't know me, right? So some
Right.
some it's through maybe a warm connection, some maybe don't know me at all, maybe all kinds of different folks, from students in middle school to some older folks.
Yeah, because music's universal, right? Good point. You can't just target one type, one sex, one gender, one ethnicity. Music extends across all of those groups.
That's right. And I'll say the key, common denominator across these people that we've spoken to is that they're all part of the deaf community. So in that sense, we were also intentional about this community and this group that we want to work with. So yeah, that was certainly a bit of a daunting experience, but and sometimes they'll give, and the best part is that they're just gonna be honest about it most of the time. If they like it, they're gonna tell you that they like it, that they're gonna tell you, hey, I like this or that. If they don't like it, they're gonna be honest about it as well. And I think that's also gonna be very valuable feedback. And you take that and you say, okay, yeah, so there could be improvements. We can further iterate on this, and what were some of the things that you didn't like? How do you see it if it was like this instead, or how do you imagine it as a product? So I think those conversations are very valuable, but yeah, I think as someone who came from the engineering world, I think those are not the easiest conversations to really dive into, as maybe if I were studying maybe business or entrepreneurship during my time. So that was definitely to a certain extent a bit of a challenge.
It wasn't black and white, right? There's nuance,
no, that's right.
Gray area, kind of like it, maybe not, little fit, maybe not, right? You can't number that. You can't put that in any sort of equation.
That's right. Yeah. But I think that was a huge, that was very important in the development.
I love that. Now, Jeremy, one thing I want to have you do, because I know in the path of starting a business and deciding whether or not you want to actually take this to the step of commercialization, you have to then kind of tap into the market opportunity. And so you guys did this as a school project. You delivered, right, the solution, execute it. Now you're on your way out of school. You're kind of done. You can move on with the rest of your lives. You can get back to potentially getting into this rock band. You can potentially go pursue a career, right? You can do what you want to do. So tell me, what was, number one, the key driver that made you and your partners say, hey, actually, this could be a really, a viable commercial business? And then two, what, if anything, did you do to validate that, to confirm that you thought, like, hey, if we put this together and we package it the right way, this could actually be a real business?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, like I said, I had a lot of fun working on this project. So I was, when I was done, I was like, I kind of wanted even more, I wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm glad I'm done with this. Now I can move on with my life. That was definitely not the sentiment. I was very excited about, opportunities to continue it. And I think the one thing that really motivated me to continue this was actually Professor Lori Atkins, encouragement and her reaction to this whole project, to the final prototype. She was very happy about it. She asked, hey, can I keep the prototype? We said, of course, we built it for you. So she still has that very first one. I think her words at the end saying, hey, Jeremy, I think this was awesome. And I think this could be a technology that could really help other people within the deaf community as well. I think that was really...
Shout out to Professor Atkins. Actually, by the way, Jeremy, help me learn the right way to shout out the deaf community, because I'm saying shout out to Professor Atkins, who won't see this unless she reads the captions, which will be on this episode. So Professor Atkins, I'm inviting you to come on the show at a later date with Jeremy. Teach me how to say shout out and sign it so I can do it the right way, because I think, again, this is teaching me, and that this is a great journey that you've decided to embark upon, because I think, and far too often in society, we focus on opportunities to make a buck simply because it's an opportunity to make a buck, right? And to your point, you guys could have said, hey, we killed that project. Somebody else can potentially take that on as an initiative if they want to. We're going to go, on to something else that, is going to be a much easier, quicker way to kind of realize all of this education that we just, signed up for, and in some cases took loans out for, et cetera, right? So it's like, do I hurry up and go get the money to start getting on with life, or do I go on and invest in this idea that I think could really impact the deaf community specifically in a positive way? And so you've talked about, kind of identifying and at that point being inspired to move forward with the project. Talk a little bit about the market. I mean, I think, layman people probably don't understand the size or scope of the deaf community, not just in the US, but worldwide. I believe that this is a worldwide product opportunity because everybody in the world listens to some form of music and enjoys some form of music. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys looked at that in terms of the overall opportunity for this product.
Yeah, sure. So within the US, there's about 11 million deaf and hard of hearing individuals. Wow. So now that's deaf and hard of hearing. And a big group of that is actually, hearing loss due to old age. So when we're looking at the market size that we are really going to be engaging with, and the market and the group of folks who will be really wanting to target, we kind of exclude that older age group. And I think we got to that through user interviews actually. So when we first started, we said, okay, I think the first thing that we really need to do is just to go out and talk to folks and talk to people within the deaf community, or people who have maybe partners who are deaf or hard of hearing, and get insights from that. We did speak with someone, in that category as well, someone who started to lose hearing in old age.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, hey, we've got this technology. We had some conversations about it. They thought it was fascinating. They were excited about it as well. When we said, okay, is this something that you'd be interested in? But even though they were excited about it, they weren't super interested in it, because they're like, listen, man, I'm old. I'm not looking to adopt a new technology. But you guys keep doing what you're doing, and there are other people who will be excited about it. And he was right. So that's why we excluded that group. So we didn't do that just because we're like, hey, we don't like, old folks. That's definitely not the case. It was like, hey, yeah,
it's not your target audience. Right. It doesn't mean they can't buy the product. It doesn't mean that the product may not fit somewhere in that demographic. It just means they're not your target audience. Right.
Exactly.
And I would offer, and I think you would agree with this, that over time that could even change. Right. Like I think this is my own personal take on it, but I personally, and I've told many people in my life this, that I think I am part of the first generation of senior citizens that will age in the old folks' home listening to rap music. I'm come from my age range and where I am at life now in my early 50s, I still listen primarily to hip hop and rap, hardcore rap, right? Like I'm still at 53 listening to a lot of stuff that I think when I was 33, I would have probably said, no way I'm still listening to Kendrick Lamar in 20 years, right? And I'm playing They Not Like Us, and I see myself probably in the old folks' home in about 30 years playing They Not Like Us, right? Probably for a reason. I'm probably in an argument with some other cats on the other side about our bridge game or something, right? And so I'm trying to send a message by blasting my music. So I think that even that target audience and consumer target could continually shift, right? Because one of the things that I would tell you that older people are concerned about, again, from my generation, of the booming systems, the 18-inch speakers in your trunk, the blasting, we were the first Walkman generation. So our ears are shot. Like our ears are, I know for a fact, my generation, come about 20 years from now, when we start all hitting our 70s, we ain't gonna be able to hear nothing. Like we are gonna literally be looking for Tactus right off the bat. So I do think this is going to be a technology that, while I agree the current generation of people who represent the elderly in this country are likely not as musically inclined. And I can think of my grandmother who recently passed, who had, frankly, kind of swan song from listening to music on any, given level. And you could kind of joke around and be like, hey, grandmother, you want to hear this new Kanye West? Or grandma, you want to hear? And she, I don't want to hear that stuff. Turn that off. I want to hear some gospel music, right? So current generation might not be the one, but I think this could be applicable for older generation. Now, talk to me also about the global and the international implications of what this brand could do.
Yeah, so I think globally, I think we have around, number off the top of my head, around 400 million people within the deaf and hard of hearing community. I think 34 million or so are like children, actually. Yeah. So I think there's a big opportunity there.
Huge
as well.
Opportunity.
Yeah, when we look at, and this is all things that we learned during our research and how the brain works, is that obviously when you're young, your brain is much more plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for someone who's much younger to get access, someone who may be deaf or hard of hearing at a very young age to get access to this technology is going to be huge. Yeah.
Huge change, right? Like it could create career paths for people in the deaf community who previously may not have even been able to consider a certain career path because they're deaf. Their disability was essentially a hindrance for that particular industry. And I'm a big advocate of finding ways to help those in the disability community overcome those barriers so they can participate and be out here with the rest of us. Because I come from a family where we have a couple of people across the family who have various disabilities. And I think every family kind of handles that or supports that differently. But I think the vast majority of us want to see that person become or have some level of independence. So I love this idea. Now, staying on that international theme, and before we wrap up the interview, I know you actually are getting ready to embark on an international journey yourself, personal and professional, but you'll be able to kind of do some professional things while you're taking this personal trip. Talk to us a little bit about the excitement when it comes to being on this journey, creating this brand, and then actually taking a trip home where there's a little bit of business and pleasure to be had on this.
Yeah, that's right. I think I think that's one of the great things about entrepreneurship is that you get to carve your own path, and I really enjoy that, and you find opportunities everywhere, right? So I'm here in Boston. There's plenty of opportunities. I'm here with CIC, which has been an awesome experience. But back home in Hong Kong, there's also a growing kind of R&D and startup ecosystem where there are plenty of resources available. There are other folks who are doing maybe something similar, or technology that may be interesting for us to partner with or integrate into our product, and just overall generally smart people who we can have these type of conversations with. So I'm excited about going back to Hong Kong. Actually, next week I'll be there. I'll be meeting with people within this ecosystem, this really vibrant ecosystem that's growing within Hong Kong, learning a little bit about the interesting technologies that they're developing there, sharing a little bit about ours, and seeing the opportunities that may lie there. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Man, I am looking forward to it for you. I can't wait for you to get back so we can catch up and I can get a debrief and actually potentially learn some things through you. So this should be really cool. So one other question I wanted to ask you before we get out, and I think this could be a great piece of parting advice for our audience. And that is one of the things that's cool about what you did, Jeremy, is you not only innovated in a really cool space that wasn't necessarily a space that was familiar to you or something that you were studying, but you also, as a function, has had to embrace a community and get kind of outside of your technical expertise to do it. So if you were giving advice for some entrepreneurs, and because entrepreneurship in a lot of cases, people say you should start doing or do entrepreneurship with something that or something you have an expertise in. And you didn't necessarily have an expertise in the deaf community. You didn't have a relationship to the deaf community. You're not deaf yourself. How would you advise somebody to think about innovating in a space where they're not part of the community, or they're not technically a person who's experiencing that particular pain point they're trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, obviously, when someone who's starting out getting into entrepreneurship, you got to know what you can bring to the table as well. And I think what I can bring is really the technical background, the, acoustics, engineering, things like that realm. But I think, there will be things that you don't know. I think if you knew I don't think there's anyone out there who really knows everything at all, everything and everything, and be able to start a business like that. So I think one thing is just being open to onboard new knowledge, because there will be a lot of that. I experience a lot of that. But I think that's a wonderful experience. It's just like learning, through university or through school, but now it's kind of in the real world, and having that mindset of, hey, I'm open to learn more about it, staying curious, I think is huge. And then the other thing is finding the right partners that can help you fill those gaps, finding the right partners who believe in what you're doing as well. And they can help you along the way, help you get connected. I've had a lot of people help me get connected with folks within the deaf community. Teachers of the deaf have been a huge advocates for what we're doing. So I think having those conversations, reaching out to people within that group where maybe you don't have a ton of knowledge, being able to just be genuine and share, hey, this is what I've done, and these are the skill sets that I can bring on. And hey, maybe you can help with these other things that I don't know too much about, and be open to learn and collaborate. Yeah, I think that's at least the approach that I've used, and it's really been great.
No, I love that, man. And one of the things I cannot say enough about is, to your point, the community of resources you've been able to leverage, not to even mention how we basically were introduced, which is the CIC. And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out the CIC. You actually are recording from the CIC podcast studio there in Boston. I am a mentor and business coach for the CIC, and Jeremy and I are working together this actual cohort season as part of his Tactus initiative. So I am happy to support him and other businesses as part of the CIC. And as Jeremy mentioned, it takes a village, so to speak, to take this entrepreneurial journey. And so for those of you who are not familiar with the CIC, which is Cambridge Innovation Centers, they have chapters in both Philadelphia and St. Louis, as well as Boston. I would strongly encourage you, if you're in any of those three markets, to reach out and find out more about the CIC, especially if you're an entrepreneur looking for that kind of support. And if you're not in one of those three markets, there's likely a CIC type organization in your city or hometown. If you're having trouble finding resources like that, feel free to reach out to us at the Brand Blueprint .biz. But in the interim, also feel free to reach out to founders like Jeremy, who you'll be able to contact post the show. So Jeremy, look, I want to thank you so much, man, for sharing your journey so far. Because I say so far because you still got plenty of road to travel, and I'm looking forward to helping you along the way. And also, though, thank you for being transparent about your insights today, because it's not often that I get a founder at your age who's already accomplished so much and frankly done such a really cool, innovative job of bringing something to the table in a space that you technically didn't come from yourself. That really just inspires me about your overall story. So I really, really appreciate what you're doing. I'm just positive that the deaf community is also appreciative about the work that you're doing. But before we wrap up, I want to make sure our listeners can connect with you and learn more about Tactus Technologies. So can you give the listeners your information and best way to link up with you and learn more?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think the best way is to, check out our website. You can see, some visuals, pictures, images of the work we've done. That will be tactusmusic.com. So TACTUS music.com. And there, there's a contact form as well. If you drop something in, it will go into my inbox, and, I'll be more than happy to start a conversation from there. Yeah, feel free to reach out, check us out.
Yep. And I would also add to that, if you are from the deaf community, have connections to the deaf community, or have a organization or a group of individuals you feel could benefit from Tactus Music Technologies, please reach out to Jeremy directly or reach out to me. I am actually working with Jeremy, so you can find me and reach me through the Brand Blueprint. You can also reach me through my agency, which is VGP. So I am, again, so happy to have Jeremy on the show today. Know that you will be seeing him again as a partner of the VGP consulting firm. He is going to be a frequent appearance on this show, and I am going to look forward to bringing you on again to get an update on how Tactus is going.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate you bringing me on to the show, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to working together and having you part of the journey. So appreciate you being part of it.
No, hey, thank you again. And listen, to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Share it. Like us. I tend to think if you don't like us, you might be a hater. So don't be a hater. Go out and like our content, especially after seeing this phenomenal interview with Jeremy today. Remember, you can find us on the brandblueprint.biz, not .com, because we're about that biz. So make sure you check us out. We've got exclusive content. You got to see this video that we will be sharing from Jeremy's experience with this Tactus journey. And until the next time, keep building, keep growing, and stay inspired. Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.